There's a long one. Nothing but net. Oh, my goodness. Didn't see that coming. I'm diddly dee.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of All Nat, brought to you by OCS. I'm your host, Natalie, and today I have a Bay Area legend with me.
You know, don't gas me like that. Don't gas me like that.
No, definitely a Bay Area legend. Jason Maples. If you are on Twitter, and a part of NBA Twitter, there's no way you don't know Jason. Everyone retweets him, quotes him. Sometimes he makes people upset. Jason is a good follow because like his own fan base, and he's a Lakers fan, they even be getting upset at him sometimes. And then, that's how you know he's good, right? And like even and measured, because like he's never too biased in one direction. I actually do really like that about him. I cannot say that I'm the most objective sports fan, so he still has some stuff I don't agree with, but generally speaking, no, I really do enjoy following Jason. And so I'm so happy that he agreed to be on the show, because is this safe territory for you? Like, you're not going to be like outcasted by Lakers Twitter for teaming up with me, right, Jason?
I already am. You feel me? So we just going along with it. This is on brand.
They're not that high on me over there. So so thank you. Welcome to the show, Jason. Seriously, thank you.
Oh, that's all good. Let's rock.
Jason's a coach, so I always love talking to coaches because they have a different perspective and point of view. And so his team will be in the playoffs this year. Contra Costa, am I saying that correct?
Contra Costa College, aka University of Richmond, baby.
There you go. So I don't want to butcher the name he just told you. So we're rooting for them. We hope that they go far in the playoffs, go all the way. So excited for that too, Jason. So both of our teams had like really bad losses the other night recently. The Warriors played the Dallas Mavs, and they were up. At one point, they had like a 21-point lead, and they kind of led for most of the game. Going into the fourth quarter, they were still up by 14, and they just totally fell apart in that fourth quarter. Were you watching the game? Did you see
Actually,
it?
they were both on ESPN, so I watched them both back to back. I was like I got to watch both games. So I was doing this, so I got 100% of both games in.
Oh, okay, good. So I want to talk about that a little bit. And then the Lakers, what's the last game the Lakers won? I'm not even trying to be funny, but you guys have been kind of on like a losing streak.
Yeah, it's bad. I'm trying to remember the last game they won. I want to say right before the All-Star break, they got one in. Hold on, man, it's bad when you got to check the ESPN to pull up.
And I don't think honestly anyone expected this, right? Like, as much as I am like always rooting against the Lakers, I just don't think I predicted this for their season this year.
Well, I thought the Westbrook thing would be shaky. I didn't think it would be like, a death nail, which it has been. But they beat the Jazz on the 16th. That was the last win. And then before that, they beat the Knicks on the 5th. But the wins are coming few and far between, unfortunately.
So let's talk about the Warriors game first, and then I want to talk about the Lakers. So what did you see? Because I mean, Klay didn't play last night, and Draymond's been out for quite a while. But like, but I don't want to use that as an excuse, because the Warriors had the game in hand.
They were about 20.
Yeah, and it's just like they just crumbled, they just fell apart, and I know throughout the game like Dallas was missing some shots, but like, and the Warriors defense was better throughout like the earlier parts of the game, but they just went on like a long period, like they couldn't score, they couldn't make any shots, and credit to Dallas, like they did step their defense up. But I think I saw you tweet something about Wiggins and like him having to do more when people are loading up on Steph. So there's that. But like, what were you seeing as it unfolded? What do you think happened?
I mean, for me, watching the Warriors lately, there's been two issues that I kind of been lamenting on, and some of y'all get upset with me because I get the Dre Wiseman thing, and I get that those guys are going to be important. Um, it's two things for me that really kind of rare for the Warriors. For me, that showed themselves. The first thing was on the defensive end, they just the lack of size. I think the buyout deadline is tomorrow, but from everything that I'm hearing on the radio and local sports talk, I am in the Bay Area, so that's what I hear on the radio. The Warriors are going to stand pat with their roster. Like they really think that Wiseman's going to be like maybe not a starter, but he's going to contribute. So um, they just don't have any size right now. Outside of Looney's, they're playing their biggest guy in their rotation right now at
Right.
6'9", and they just they get mauled inside. Like I like Looney for what he, he's a good player for what he's gone through and what he contributes, but he's not a rim protector. So if the Warriors ever have a game where they're not as crisp as they are on their rotations or something like that, or have a guy who can get to the rim a lot, they're gonna struggle. And I think Dallas stopped settling so much for jump shots. And I think Kidd did a good job of adjusting. It's like we just need to keep attacking the basket. He posted up Luka a lot, had Dinwiddie driving a lot. There's just no rim protection. And then also that hurts on the offensive glass as well. So that's what I noticed on that end. That's been a theme for the Warriors lately. And the other end, they just, um, I crack jokes with my co-host. My co-host on my pod is a big Williams guy. I crack jokes about the
Temple
All-Star
of
stuff.
Hoop, right?
Yeah,
That's your
Temple of Hope. Yeah,
pod.
yeah, yeah, that's my
Check
pod.
it out, follow,
yeah,
subscribe.
yeah, appreciate that. But we joke he's a big Wiggins guy. Wiggins just got to be an all-star. When they load up on Steph like that, they don't. Wiggins sees no help. It's all one-on-one. But he gets any resistance. He likes to take these off balance step back jumpers and settle when his athleticism is off the charts. He should be a guy who should be able to get downhill and take advantage of these situations. I saw he hasn't scored 20 points in a long. I forgot the exact date, but it's been a while since he's scored over 20 points. And it's just they're going to need that from him at some point. And to be fair, Clay has been very good. I think by the time playoffs come, Clay's going to be maybe not back to his old self, but pretty close. And we all know Clay has a big. He's a big moment player. So I think when teams load up on Steph, Clay is going to be more than willing to step up and take shots. But I think, like you said, there's no Clay, no Dre. Wiseman still hasn't played a minute. Like Clay and Dre are two big pieces, but you probably would like to see him close that game, being up 20 on the down. The Mavs are playing way better than they were this year, though. So I think the
Yeah,
Mavs are better than their record shows because they started off so slow.
right.
But they're better than their record shows. Kid has those boys playing,
Agreed.
but yeah, you still want to see him close that at home. You don't want to. I think that's the first time in the current era that they had dropped a game where they led by 20 in the second half or something. It was crazy. First time it ever happened since Kerr was coaching.
Spencer Dinwiddie, like they had nothing for him. Like he was just doing whatever he wanted last night.
Yeah. He was Dallas traded for him like in a last ditch effort to just get Luka another ball handler, and that's probably like the first game I get really paid dividends. He had
Yeah,
been struggling.
definitely.
Yeah.
The Lakers though, I didn't even get to watch the game, but
Oh, I did every minute.
I mean, I know. So you guys played the Pelicans. I know that they got CJ now, but and I know that you're a big BI guy, but what happened? And I mean, you had fans arguing with like, oh, like, what the hell is going on with the Lakers? Like,
It's just I'll say this about the Lakers and the Warriors fan base to an extent. When a fan base is so big and just so many different opinions flying around, there's gonna
right,
be, fireworks on the timeline or on any type of social media site. So that's kind of is what it is. But yeah, I just think the anytime with the one thing the Pelicans do well, they're fighting for a playing spot just like the Lakers, The Pelicans do, though, they play hard. Like they're under Willie Green. One thing, remember they started off 1-12. So they're also one of those teams that's a lot better than their current record because they started out with one win in the first month of the season, right? So
right.
better than their record shows. They're about 500 whenever Brandon Ingram plays. So they're a decent enough team when he's suited up. Um, the Lakers just when you play hard, the Lakers just don't have a response for it. They just the effort wasn't there, the rotations. Um, Willie Green was very deliberate in putting certain guys in a lot of action. Westbrook making him, defend off ball stuff a lot. They got a lot of open shots. The Lakers just aren't interested in rotating that LeBron at the 5 lineup. and work for a minute, but it's just too much to ask of him at age 37. He's not rotating on the backside like that at this age. Um, and they just got blown out. They're cussing out people in the stands, getting fans ejected, yelling back and forth. It's kind of snowballing, unfortunately. But
You think they're making the playoffs this year?
um, my thing is, so looking at it, I put up a poll that said, are they going to make it? They got the upper hand now by a couple of games, and I want to say they're going to sneak into that 10th spot. I think Portland has a schedule maybe just as hard as the Lakers. And they're actually interested in tanking, so I can see Portland kind of falling out and having the Lakers stay in that 9-10 spot. But I do think New Orleans is going to get a 10. San Antonio's coming. Popovich doesn't believe in tanking, so he's going to try to push for wins. So I think their competition. They got 2.5 games on New Orleans and 2.5 games on in 4 on San Antonio. But I posted their schedule yesterday. It's just real. I'm trying to find. I was trying to
Yeah,
find
you
where
guys have like one of the hardest strength of schedules, right?
Yeah, so they got the so we're going into March. Let me see. So March, they got the Mavericks. You know they're not a slouch tomorrow. After that, they got the Clippers. Ty Lue has never lost to the Lakers since he's been the head coach there, 6-0. You got the Lakers, got the Warriors, Lakers again. We'll see how that goes. And then you got the Spurs who'll be fighting for their life. And then so you got the Rockets on the 9th. You get a little bit where you got Rockets, Wizards back to back on the 9th and the 11th. But then right after that, it goes, Suns, Raptors, Timberwolves, Raptors again, Cavs, Sixers, Pelicans again, Mavericks, Jazz. Like these are all teams who are fighting for playoff spots are
Right.
already in the playoffs. So I was like, it's gonna be tough. So they got to figure something out. They just finally got rid of DJ and brought in DJ Augustine.
And I saw that like the Sixers are interested in him. Why?
He's just a big body man. I think just take up space, but he's just, he was a great defensive player at one point, but at some point, father time comes for everybody. It just came a little early for him. His body's just done. Unfortunately, he was a great player, great defensive player in his heyday, but his body just
Not
is
now.
not willing.
Of course, obviously, on Twitter, like we joking, the Lakers' demise is something that I delight in. But like, I really can't comprehend what's going on with this team. Like, I wasn't someone that was like super high on the Lakers, like the way everyone is. Some of that
Right.
was basketball based. Some of it was probably a little hate, but and wishful thinking, right? But
Right.
I still could have not anticipated this. And Russ gets a lot of the blame, but
And,
what are you seeing that's really the problem? It's not all Russ, is it?
right. No. So no. See, I think the mistake that a lot of people make is they try to put it all on one thing. You got people who think it's all on Russ, people who think it's all on Vogel, people who think it's all on Rob and Jeannie. When in combination, when in reality, it's a combination of all those things. Like it's a trickle down. So you start off, I just real quick go through the whole timeline of events. So you got the off season comes. Let's start with the Caruso situation. Now, like that's on Jeannie. Jeannie's just too cheap to pay the tax, and you just can't do that when you're trying to win a championship. You're trying to cut pennies. So Caruso, his current contract, 3 years, $30 million with the Bulls, would have cost the Lakers like 3 years. Now they've been $30 million per year because of the tax, right?
Right.
But he went back and said, the Bulls are offering me this. I want to come back to the Lakers though, so I'll take a lesser deal. They still say no. They choose THT. When in reality, if Jeannie's not cheap, she can just sign both, right? And on top of that, that gives you flexibility because Caruso has value. If nothing's working out or there's no playing time, you can trade him for something, right? So you lose a good player who gives you an option to upgrade your roster with a trade. That's first. Then
When that first happened, did you think it was going to be as big a deal as it is now?
no, and I actually have a whole bunch of Laker fans who throw it in my face. Like I told you, we were going to miss Caruso. Like I knew we'd miss him, but I didn't think like he's going to be the difference between a championship and not. But like on them, those things matter. So I underestimated losing him. I just to give his effect. Chicago, when he doesn't play, they're like 25th in defense or something like that. When he plays, they're top five. He's just such a great on-ball defender. Rarely gets beat. Always knows where to be and help, and like that. That stuff matters. So they miss him dearly. You go on. There's conflicting reports about who pushed for the Russ trade. Apparently, there was a meeting between AD and
Braun and
Russ and
Russ.
LeBron, and then Rob had the Sacramento deal on the table to get Buddy Hield. Um, they wanted that Knicks to get Westbrook, and so that happened. When you do that, the Westbrook, you sent four role players to make the money match for one guy, and at that point the move has to work because you lose all your flexibility. Like
Right.
Montrez, has value. He could have been traded for something. Kuz has value. He could have been traded for something. KCP has value as a 3 and D guy. He could have been traded for something. When you put all that into one guy, it has to work, and it didn't. Westbrook's having a worse year of his career. Since he was a rookie, it's efficiency wise, decision making wise. At one point, he had 0 assists and 7 turnovers. It's just really bad. Like his bad spacing, he adds to it. So he needs to operate in the open floor to be his best version of himself. The Lakers can't offer that. So like that is the team fit issue. That's Rob. That's on Rob and Jeannie. Um, Vogel, coming to him doesn't play the optimal lineups all the time, right? The offense gets real stagnant. A lot of that, like that's on him. And some of it is the pieces he was given. Not much shooting. The shooters he does have are terrible defenders. Melo, Wayne Ellington, even Monk, who's been a surprise. He even struggles on defense, right? So the shooters he does have, they don't defend well. So he's trying to play whack-a-mole with the lineups, trying to figure out what he needs for that night. Do I need more defense, more offense? So that's a tough part. Um, then there's injuries, right? LeBron in and out of the lineup. Anthony Davis can't stay upright. That's part of it. And then on top of that, to be honest, LeBron and AD and Russ, they don't bring it every night. When they were out there were, a whole bunch of plays point that people have posted ad nauseum about the lack of effort that they show, whether it's rebounding,
Right.
rotating. The biggest thing for me is there's so many plays where they get upset about something that happened on offense, or there's a bad turnover or a bad shot,
And
and
they
they
don't get
walk
back.
back and the other team's getting a layup or open three. Like that happens entirely too much for a veteran laden team like the Lakers. I think that and all that stuff just, I see that's a bunch of little things that blow up into a bigger issue. And that's kind of what happens. So it's not just one thing to me. I'm sorry I went long. I'm kind of like long.
No, I'm actually just looking at the schedule, but I think it's good that you gave like all this background because it's fun to blame it on Russ.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
But I think to me, like one of the big lessons with the Lakers and even the Nets, but to a lesser extent, is a little bit about like why you maybe don't let players control so much of like what you do. And I mean, I know you said there's conflicting stories about Russ
Right.
and like who pushed for him, but I just seeing like, like in Brooklyn, Harden came there. Even like I see a lot of Nets fans, and I'm curious how you think what kind of job Nash is doing, but like people don't think
he
Nash is doing.
he he avoids a lot of criticism compared to other coaches. I'll just say that he avoids a lot, like it's under
Yeah,
the radar stuff. A lot of it's because they're injured, but just tactically, he's not on par with a lot of other guys. I think that this is a deeper issue, but there's always been that conversation about the type of jobs that certain white coaches are allowed to walk into, and that the black coaches kind of have to scratch from the bottom. You know what I mean? Or from a rebuilding situation that's not ideal, and the
right.
record will be bad in 3 years, and they're shown the door, right? Never given the opportunity because the record was so bad. So and Kerr did. And I think Kerr's a great coach, but same thing with him. No coaching experience. Walks into the Warriors had just won 50 games for the first time when he got that job. We're under the Steph Curry era. I think they just won 50 games. So it's like it's different. The difference in situations guys walk into is what I think about when I think about Nash. But the Nets in general, yeah, I mean it's the player empowerment era. It is what it is.
Because they wanted him, right? And I think a lot of people, like when we brought up like that stuff about like with race, they're like, this is not the case with Nash. Um,
Yeah, they push for him. That's fair.
Right.
That's a great point.
I
They
don't
did.
I don't complete like I still think his race factored in, even though people think like even though the players wanted him, I still think that that opportunity still may not like if they really wanted like a different coach, I think it was just much easier to do because it was Nash. But that being said, Kenny Atkinson was a very capable coach who was like already there.
Right, right.
And
And I
they
think, yeah, I think Kenny Atkins is going to be next up for the whenever a new job opens up.
right. And so anyway, they didn't want him. And look, they've had people in and out, but I think also their coaching has hurt them, which is why I referred to them. And
Yeah,
so
yeah. I
those are
think they
all things
just,
like players wanted. They didn't want a certain
yeah.
coach. They
When
wanted
you
to like
yeah when you hear Kyrie and Katie talk, they just wanted something like real loose and easy, like not so. Katie was coming from, Steph, who we all know. I mean, coming from Kerr, who we all know is very meticulous about the system. He wants to run. Like I see you
right.
guys complain about it. So
Yeah,
like
we're gonna talk
that's
about that in a
yeah.
second.
Right. And then, Katie had just finished playing with Brad Stevens, same thing, meticulous, running, this type of set. You know what I mean? So I think they were both looking for a little more freedom. And I think that, Nash kind of offers that. So I think that's something they like.
So I'm going to be hosting a Spaces soon, I think. And there will be like some coaches on there who coach at like the college level. Um, but the conversation is around like what is a good coach. And in particular, it was like another person. I don't know if you know him, Jason Battle, but like he wanted to like have the discussion because a lot of time, Warriors fans were constantly talking about Kerr. And like after that top 15 list came out, you had a lot of Warriors fans pushing back against it. But there's lots of Warriors fans who love him too. But like the people who don't love him, um, some of them can go extreme, but like the pro Kerr camp, they just think that, you know, if you don't like him, you're ungrateful, you don't know what you're talking about. And so I land in the place of like, I don't think Kerr is a bad coach. um, I think he's like slightly above average. I don't think he's a great coach. I think he's like good. But I don't think he's like great. I don't. But I'm curious in terms of, is there any validity at all to the people who say like he makes things a little harder on Steph than it needs to be on the court? Is there any
Yeah,
validity to that?
I'm glad you asked. Here's where I am. So I think the great coaches, I think Kerr is a great coach, like in the sense of he has a great system, right? And I think what the two guys who I think are better than him, which are Spo and Ty Lue, is
We're in
that they have a
agreement.
great system and they're willing to adapt on the fly. And I think that's the one thing Kerr does. Kerr's just like, we're going to do this, and if you stop it, it's a great system. If you stop it, then what the hell? And I think that is like the one thing I ding him on. But he gets guys to defend, guys buy into what he's doing. Probably, and that's probably because Steph did it, and it's easier when you have your star buy in. It's kind of like treating. He's kind of like treating Steph like Pop did Duncan. It was like, I'm going to coach this guy hard and get him to buy in, then it has to trickle down because that's just how the superstar goes in. You got to buy in. So I think that's kind of what he's doing with Steph. Um, my criticisms from Kerr came last year, really, when it was clear that the Warriors' typical system just wasn't going to work. You just didn't have smart players. You had Oubre and Bazemore, who weren't smart. Wiseman was a rookie. You know what I mean? No Clay. You got a bunch of new guys, and you're running this really intricate system. And then you got Steph, who's in the 100th percentile in every single um, individual part of the basketball, whether pick and roll ball handler, isolation, coming off dribble handoffs, coming off screens, and you insist on having him be set back screens and be off ball when the talent last year lended itself to kind of leaning in to kind of what Houston did with Harden, but it was out of necessity. You know what I mean? So um, I get that he didn't want to burn Steph out. I'm sure that factored into it, but I just thought that um, Steph had a historically great individual year last year, and it wasn't maximized because Kerr insisted on running the same system that he stuck with instead of adjusting. But to his credit, um, Kerr and Myers, Lacob, they went and got smarter players. So the system works a little better now. So you replace Bazemore and Oubre with smarter guys, the Otto Porters. You bring Iguodala back. Those are smarter guys. You get Clay back. He's a high IQ guy offensively.
But on a night like last night when
Yeah,
Clay's out,
right.
right, and Dre is gone, like Jordan Poole didn't even see 20 minutes, you know.
Yeah, that's tough. I thought that was very. I was when we're watching. I was thinking about why doesn't Poole play more? You need another shot creator when in a game like this because without Draymond and Clay, that's a shot making and that's a great passer. So you need somebody who can kind of freelance. And I was wondering why he only got 20 minutes.
Less than 20 minutes, 19. But
19. Yeah, I know it was 19, 20 minutes.
yeah. And so and that's the kind of stuff that like really drives some people crazy, you know. So I'm not gonna sit here and say that some people maybe not don't go to the extreme end, but I think he is a coach that also similar to Nash escapes any kind of criticism. I can't really think of a time, and I know when you're winning, people aren't going to criticize, but I
Right.
really can't think of a time ever that I've really seen Kerr criticized for anything that
Yeah,
he
the
does.
the most I remember it was the game 7 in 2016 when he threw Festus out there, I think, or he threw Verja out there in the fourth quarter. And it
That's what
was
made
just
us go crazy.
yeah,
Like, did you?
that's
The
the
only
last time
person
I
I saw criticize him was Amin El Hassan. Like, did
yeah,
you see
yeah.
anyone else in the media
Yeah, yeah.
saying
No, I
anything?
remember like the stuff I listened to at least because you know what there wasn't spaces back then. Twitter maybe wasn't I wasn't on Twitter that much, but I remember the general conversation on like the local radio and stuff was like, why the hell did he
Okay.
put there? Yeah. So I think there was some criticism there, but again, like they went on to win the three of the next four championships or something like that, if I recall, or two of the next three. They won two in a row with KD, then he got hurt. But yeah, man, that is I just I find it hard to criticize Kurt, man. You got a front
And
office.
I'm not asking you to.
No,
I
no, no,
just,
no, no. You just get my opinion. Like I'm
yeah.
not gonna. But it's just a guy who wins that much, even though he has a generational player. But the thing about Kurt and Pressmo, his teams they're always going to defend regardless, and I think that's the mark of a great coach. Even if offensively you don't love something, I think to yesterday, um, as a Laker fan, I can tell you this: Phil Jackson would just do stuff in the regular season to see if it sticks, knowing it was questionable. It would throw a game or two. So like that's well within Steve Kerr. He is from that tree. He did play for Phil,
But
and
we're
Phil would
60
do stuff
plus
like
games in. Like, how much
I,
more do
I
you
understand.
need to
I
see and
understand that. I
test?
understand. It didn't matter. Phil would just try stuff. I'm telling you, like that's definitely a part of it. The mad scientist thing. Let me just try this. It's a game, and part of it is the Warriors have so much confidence that I think they can go into Phoenix in a game 7 and win or something like that, or win a big game 5
Memphis
in
is on their
Phoenix.
heels, and now you
Yeah,
just dropped a game.
yeah. I think the Warriors have so much confidence that it doesn't
They
matter
don't
to
care
them.
about that.
I think the Warriors' main thing is if we're healthy, we can be anybody. I think that's and if we get Dre upright, we get Wiseman giving us 10 to 15 minutes, we get the full version of Clay. We're 100%. We're good. I think that's the mentality, and I think that shows in a lot of what Kerr does. Like he's not you know what do you say, chasing wins. I mean, he's chasing wins, but he's not chasing that number one seed. If that makes sense. I know,
Yeah.
I know that bothers a lot of you that he's not pushing for that.
Last year it really did bother me. I, like at this, I don't even think they should be chasing the one seed anymore, but I don't know. There's just something to me about like respecting on some level, like the season and like
that makes sense.
I get that they earned like as champions and everything that they've done to be confident, but there's to me there's something to like just thinking like you can just keep tricking away games and like that it doesn't matter or that it's not gonna come back to bite you. But it usually does seem to work out for them, and obviously I wanted to because it's my team.
Right.
But like there's a level of arrogance there to me that I find astounding,
Right.
to be honest with you.
Yeah, I guess it's all a matter of perspective because I wouldn't call it arrogance. I think just some teams they just when you have enough experience like that, you just prioritize health over everything else. You think you have great enough players where I can just go like you've seen Steph do it at Houston, right? Game
Right.
33 and a half. Like you have players that can go on the road and perform. So you're
Right.
worried about just get them there upright and healthy and don't possibly push something by, trying to chase that number one seed and burn out. So depending how you see it, could be arrogance, could be confidence, could be smart. It's all a matter of perspective on that issue.
I hear you. So speaking of Steph, right? Like this has not been the best individual year for him, although he's still been incredibly impactful to the team.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
some people,
I'm looking at his, yeah.
his impact stats are still insane, right? But it's really his shooting that most people are focused on. And it's bad for Steph, right? Like shooting 38% or whatever he's shooting. It might be a little lower now, but his percentage for any other player would still be like, oh, that's very good. But
yeah, that's funny. So like I'm looking at it right now. So his a lot of stuff that players do is broken up in the PPP by different play actions, right? That's how Synergy does it.
okay.
So just as a spot up shooter, like he's still in the 90th percentile. That's people were complaining about him. Like literally, he's 90th percentile in spot up shooting. In isolation, he's the best in the league at 100 percentile. Coming off screens, 100 percentile. You know what I mean? It's just that what the dribble handoffs, he's in 11 percentile. He was like literally in the 99 percentile last year. Like that's that's been a drop off. But I just think you got to just trust him to figure it out. He's a 3-time champion, 2-time MVP, and he's our guy. You just got to figure it out. And then,
well, that's what I want to ask you because there's been a lot of conversation around is Steph in decline, and I get it. Like with age, you're going to decline, right. But I mean, I just cannot believe that Steph has forgotten how to shoot the basketball.
Right, and that's it's weird because you look at the numbers at face value without doing a deep dive. You think, oh, he's slowing down a little bit, but it's the open shots that are not fine. That was the crazy part. You look at it like he's missing wide open shots and he's hitting the ones that are contested.
Right.
So I know if you're a Warrior fan, you think, well, maybe that stabilizes and he takes off in the playoffs, but it hasn't quite yet. He's had a couple big games like in the last couple of weeks, but if that stabilizes, I think he looks, like the Steph of old. Guys like Steph, where they're not completely dependent on athleticism, they tend to have longer careers. You know what I mean? Longer careers being effective. Ray Allen played forever. Reggie Miller played till late 30s. Right. Steph is going to be on that same track, given he has an outlier skill that's not dependent on athleticism. So I think Steph at least has a few more years as being recognized as a consensus top 4 player, that upper echelon of guys. I think he's right. Has a few more years of that.
So you're not yet prepared to be like he's in this decline that
at the face value, the numbers do look like when you go like on a deep dive and see that it's mostly wide open stuff, and then like he's in 100th percentile in isolation, 97th percentile as a pick and roll ball handler. Like those are the two things for guards that are telltales, and he's still at the top of the league in that. You just need his open to stabilize.
His finishing has definitely improved. It's like his 3 that's still somewhat inconsistent.
Yeah, see, I think I think that's a byproduct of him. It might be like the weights, right? So we got better at finishing, dealing with contact, but at the same time, when you lift a lot, your shot, the touch has to be adjusted because you're stronger now. So I think he just got to balance that.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, we're playing the Lakers this weekend, right? We both have a couple of games in between there, but that's why I wanted to have you on the show. So we're playing you guys, but you guys have the Clippers and the Mavericks. Who are you guys playing this week? What's the other game?
Clippers, Mavericks, Warriors.
Okay. And we play the
Mavericks first, then Clippers and Warriors.
Okay. And we have the Mavs again on Thursday. Before that, we play the Wolves. So that's our next game. Actually, by the time this episode drops, I think it will be after that Timberwolves game. But so we have those 2 games in between before we get to you guys. I really need us to win that Mavericks game to make up for like this just fucking like the complete meltdown. Like I'm usually someone who doesn't get like too upset. Some of the losses have affected me, but like not that deeply. But last night, I just feel like it was inexcusable. Like that was just not a game you were supposed to lose. Even the one with Denver before the All-Star break, those were just like games to me like they should not have dropped. And so I'm hoping we're going into the game on the weekend versus the Lakers like having won, but we'll see because we're going to be playing the Wolves again, and Clay is not playing. Apparently he has some kind of illness and they're just being very general, so I hope it's nothing too serious, but they'll be
Right.
without Clay, but the Wolves will be on a back-to-back. So but it's in Minnesota, so we'll see. I don't know. Are you guys going to get any wins before you play us on Saturday, you think?
The Clippers game is tough. They almost had him last time, but just something about Ty Lue just always runs circles around Vogel. Um,
Tyler's a
uh,
good coach, man.
yeah, I
He's a
think
great coach. Good
yeah,
is not
right.
even, yeah, he's great. I
So
actually hate, like, I love Ty as a coach. I hate when we play him too, just because of the way he defends stuff. Like, even like they always just do a good job with us if Lou's on the other side coaching.
right. So the Mavericks game, again, when teams are great defensively, they give the Lakers trouble because they're just not going to give LeBron the rim. And I think
Are either of those home games for y'all?
I think they're on a homestand. Matter of fact, I think they're all three at home. Yeah, they're all three
Okay.
at home. It's a homestand.
Because I think the Warriors Lakers game is going to still be competitive because I think Steph and Bron still really revel in playing one another.
Right. So then that's also on ABC too. So I think they're both trying to put on the show. So
Yeah.
it's they're all at home. I mean, technically it's a Clippers home game, but we know how that goes when they play that what the building. It just is what I mean. It's not a shot at the Clippers. It's just
No, yeah, right.
those are all three going to be tough games. It just they said before when the Lakers were catting off early in the season, people were all saying that last 2.5 months they are playing all good teams, so they needed to pull together. So when they were barely skating at 500, people saw the doomsday coming, and now that the schedule toughened up, they're 5 games under because schedule got harder. They're still playing, have the same bad habits, not
What's
playing
going
hard.
on with AD? Will he return before? Do you think before the season ends, like
Well,
before
they
the
said
playoffs?
he said he's being reevaluated on March 17th, right?
Okay.
And at that point, there'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 games left. That's the reevaluation point. So there might be another week or something after that, and we'll see what happens. But I think they'll just assess where they are and decide whether or not to pull the plug. I think that's what that means. When they say evaluate, that means we'll evaluate where the hell the Lakers are in the standings before we decide
You
to
think
bring him
there's a
back.
chance they could call it a wrap to the season before? You think that's like really possible?
There's a chance they could shut AD down. I absolutely do think so. If they're like if they find themselves in a situation where it's bottomed out and they're 3-4 games out of that 10 seed where it's just completely they go like have like a big 1-7 stretch, and it just be like there's no point in bringing him back. And I think that's like the ultimate doomsday though. But I think they'll just evaluate where they are, and I think they're still in that 9-10 area where a chance to sneak in and play. They'll play him.
So let me ask you this question because I had Jasmine Watkins on the show previously, and at the time when
Yes, that's my girl.
I know she's one of my stores. She's the best. We because at that time there was that whole conversation going around. It was after the top 75 celebration, and there was
Right.
that picture on Twitter with the Lakers, players, and so it was like, is Bron a Laker legend, or where do you land on that? So that's one question: is he a Laker legend? And two, like if you guys even if you make the play-in or make the playoffs, but it's an early exit, and that kind of seems like where it might be trending for the Lakers.
Yeah.
So if you have this year the way that it went, last year, you guys went out in the first round due to some injuries. The first year Bron was there, injuries, so you didn't make the playoffs. You guys have won finals, obviously you guys did win one. Is that enough for you to call like Bron and AD like and him coming like a success, or do you feel like they underachieve? Because I know like there are some people who kind of like They regret trading the young core, and you're like, no, we got a ring out of it. And his time isn't done, and anything can still happen next year. But like, do you think at this point, like if it was to end, would you consider it a success?
Well, the point is to win a championship, right? So they won a championship, so you have to call it a success. You just at some point, even though star players, you end up you pay the price for trading for them at some point, So you hope you cash in. And the Lakers did cash in. You just at the point now where they're paying for it, right? So you sold your whole farm, a bunch of picks that can be swapped or is downright taken away, right? So this is the price. This is what AD cost. It's unfortunate that he just can't stay on the floor to maximize your end of it. But you didn't win a championship though, so you can't call it a failure. I think that's being a little dramatic for people who are doing that. And I was
You think it's underachieving at all, just because like Lakers, at least
that's why people may feel that way because it's the Lakers, and there's like usually the superstars that have all been here throughout our history have all won multiple championships. So on that end, people may interpret that as failure. Magic dynasty, Shaq dynasty, Kobe, dynasty, so I think that's kind of what people, would be expectation, whether it's realistic or not in a salary cap era. I think the salary cap rules are like specifically designed to try to impede that with the punitive luxury tax and, making it harder to sign free agents, giving them incentive to stay where they are with the money. But I can't call it a failure at the other time. So here's the thing. I won't call it a failure or underwhelming, but I understand why people view it that way. It all depends on your lens. If your lens is like Laker history, then yeah, I can see how it's underwhelming. But, they won a championship. There were circumstances they couldn't control with the whole COVID and the bubble. They got it done. Whether or not people want to weigh that championship a certain way, me, I just call it a championship. Some people call it hard, some people call it easy, but that's a whole different discussion I'm not going to get into for the 978th time. But
is that something that Lakers fans debate though, or is that just like outside of the fan base who are trying to like attack you guys?
Yeah, it's outside. It's outside, but you hear so much people like, all you got was a bubble ring for AD, and I'm like, all right, man, if it was so easy, why wouldn't your team there? So it was like, whatever. But so they did get a championship out of it. So I can't really. There's no way you can call it a failure. There's teams who still have not won a championship, have not been to a finals. So there's no way you can say that. In my opinion.
So is he a Laker legend? Or is he a legend that played for the Lakers?
He's a legend that played for the Lakers for me. Just a guy who's been here, is a legend that played for the Lakers. I think if he gets one more, he's a Laker legend. I think all those guys got like multiple rings. So if he gets one more, he's a Lakers legend. But right now, he's a legend that played for the Lakers.
Okay.
But I will say this: the Lakers were a rudderless ship until he came along. Like it was looking bad. Like they had a bunch of these good, young, talented players, but they weren't being developed correctly. Like they showed signs and flashes, but I don't think, Luke Walton and his beach buddies were the coaching staff. And they just got a bunch of wild vets. Like the vets were like Lance Stevenson and JaVale McGee. You know what I mean? So it's like those guys weren't necessarily going to develop the best they could. So I think I give LeBron credit for that. Like he kind of steered the ship, correctly for at least a year, that is,
Okay. I think that's fair. I mean, I think that's where I land too, as someone who observed the Lakers. Jasmine, she was of the mindset that like there really isn't anything he can do to be a Lakers legend. She just thinks he's a legend that played for the Lakers. Like I think based on like the number of years he has left, because she thinks he would have to play for a number of years and that kind of thing. So she had some other criteria, but I'm only assessing it on right now because I don't know what the future will bring. But I think, yeah, you would just say he's a legend that played for the Lakers. That's kind of where I land. All right, so let's talk about this game real quick on Saturday, because then I want to like talk a little bit about what's going on around the league and what you're seeing. So we're gonna play you guys on Saturday, like you said, it's ABC game.
Right.
On stuff like to get up. We won the first two games. The personnel though, but this is going to be, in Staples. The personnel has like, I don't know. In the first game, you guys had most of your players or your key guys, right?
Ron and AD played both games.
Yeah. Oh, did they?
Yeah, Brown and AD played. It was opening night, right? Was opening night they
Yeah, I
played?
know you guys were
Yeah.
like still healthy then, but I know like since
Yeah,
then I couldn't.
Brown and AD played. I remember that because
Yeah.
I remember everybody was like Kaminga was giving AD a hard time. People were kind of mad that he wasn't more dominant. So yeah, I distinctly remember that.
Yeah, I mean, we will be without Dre still. So
I imagine
hopefully,
Clay. I imagine Clay is probably targeting
yeah,
that.
I'm hoping Clay is back by then. I don't know what this illness is because they just like a general illness. And so I really don't know. So I hope it's nothing too severe. So, but assuming Clay is back, and there's no other changes, what advantages do you see like for the Warriors and like what are the advantages for you guys?
Well, the Warriors, right? Just they're great defensively. The Lakers aren't. I think the Warriors they specifically have an offense that moves a lot, and the Lakers just have such trouble, rotating and moving defensively. So I think then that's where they'll be attacked. And I think like the last game, the Lakers kept it close because they attacked inside, and that's the Warriors' weakness right now. Without Dre and Looney being their only center, that's where you got to kind of try to keep the game close. I think that's how they kept it close.
But with 80 out, who are they gonna go
You're
to
right. That's what I'm
help?
saying. That's the other thing. They'll probably post LeBron a lot. See how that works. But Kerr is smart. The Lakers can't shoot that well. He'll probably double and and make other guys beat them. That's what the Pelicans did. The Lakers were, 3 for 20 at one point from three, and long threes lead to fast breaks. So that adds up over time. So I think the Lakers, they'll obviously be a talent deficit. Looking at both rosters, but the Lakers will try to pound the ball inside. Slow the tempo down, and make it every possession that much more valuable to keep the game close. And the Warriors are going to do what they do: play fast, get up a lot of threes, have a lot of movement on offense, and we'll see where the chips fall.
I feel like they struggle to push the pace with like Dre out. Like even in the game,
I
the
think
other
so. They're lacking another ball handler, which is why I'm curious why Poole's minutes are down.
yeah, they got into like in that fourth quarter, they got into like a lot of isolation. Actually, even before the fourth quarter. And I like before that game, because I had hosted like a spaces with SJ, and I was just saying, I think like aside from they need to make sure like their defense is tight, I thought that they really needed to push the pace in that game. And they were doing that like early and then they just went away from it. And
Right.
so I feel like if you guys are able to take them out of it and teams have been able to, that will like give you guys a better chance of
Right,
winning.
and that's the thing. Like, and those are teams that are disciplined, which the Lakers have not proven to be this season. Like, what I'm saying. So it's just like I'm just going off at this point. Like you said it yourself, like a couple minutes ago. We're in Game 60 right now, right? So these teams are who they are. The buyout deadline for guys to be playoff eligible is tomorrow, right? So that's like the biggest changes are going to come on the margins. There's no big trades or big deals happening, and it's just the Lakers just haven't been disciplined on either end this season. Turning the ball over, losing guys, giving up threes, so they'll have to lock in, and the Warriors are going to test that. That's what a Kerr offense does. A lot of movement. You're going to have to talk and read and switch, and we'll stuff like that. They kept the last one close. We'll see what happens.
I wonder, because you spoke about the buyout deadline, even though it's unlikely the Warriors are going to do anything. Is there someone out there that you think they could get on the buyout market that would actually help? Because I know you've talked about us having like another this is probably not realistic, but you've talked about us having like a better shot creator than like a Jordan Poole, like someone's of a higher level.
That was
And
going to
I
be
don't think that was before the
yeah,
trade deadline.
yeah.
And then the other thing is like obviously getting a big, which a lot of fans talk about. But is there someone out there? I mean, Robin Lopez is the only name I've heard.
Yeah,
But
that's what about. I was like, I thought Robin Lopez would have been like, he's just the type of big Kerr likes. Big, can move a little bit, can really pass, that, like a poor man, like a potentially be a poor man's Bogut. which is what Kerr loves, bigs that can, kind of read the floor in front of him. Yeah, my being about the Warriors, that was my two issues. Like, Jordan Poole is going to have to be their second best on ball creator. That's a lot for a team trying to win a championship. A guy like that. Because you look at all the other teams, Phoenix, they got two really good ones, Paul and Booker, right? Grizzlies, they got, Morant, Desmond Bain is really good. A couple other guys who got some wiggle, Tyus Jones, Melton, they got guys who can just really attack off the dribble. So, Poole's going to have to play and, be effective for them to win in the later rounds, at least. I don't think the Warriors care, but I'm looking at that second round matchup with the Grizzlies is just not going to be fun because they always play the Warriors tough because the Grizzlies' strengths, they line up with the Warriors' weaknesses, which is, rebounding and, paint points. Grizzlies lead the NBA in paint points, lead the NBA or near the top of the NBA offensive rebound because they got Steven Adams and Jaren Jackson in there.
How do you think they'd adjust to like playing us with Clay? Because they've yet to play us with Clay.
I mean, they'll have Dylan Brooks probably following Clay around, humping his leg like he did Steph in the play, and fouled him up and down the court until the ref stops calling it, which is actually a sound strategy. I'm just gonna keep fouling you till the ref gets tired of calling it. So like I kind of get
like their Draymond. He's like that player. Like if he's on,
Dylan Brooks. Yeah, Dylan Brooks is like I love him if he's on my team. If
right,
he's not,
but you hate him if he's not.
Right. I think like the Dylan Brooks will definitely draw the Clay Steph assignment depending on who else was on the floor. I think the Grizzlies. I think they do a really good job of not letting Steph beat them. So I think Clay would actually be a big factor because he's going to be a guy that's not going to be afraid to take and make big shots that, Clay, that, Steph generates. He's going to step right into those and let him fly. Like I said, man, a lot of this is you need Wiggins to get back to his early season form. He just hasn't been, the guy that kind of was busting out early in the year.
I think some of that has to do with Clay being back.
That's fair. That's completely fair. That's completely fair.
But but that's what concerns me. Like, I'm like, I think they're going to figure it out, or at least I hope they will. But, right. Like they got to find a way to make sure that like Wiggins, we can tell he's someone that you need to like keep him engaged and run plays for him. Like if you're leaving him on his own, because someone pointed out to me, like, well, he's still getting up like the same shot attempts. And I'm like, but it's not running. It's not coming from like actions they're running for him. Like he's having to create them for himself. And if he creates them for himself, he's not going to be as effective. Like we know that. And that's like his choices are not as smart and, and so they have to find a way to make sure because we need him. We actually need that production he's been giving us all season with Clay. And so, and also Poole, like we need both of them. And so people were saying like, well, do you think Clay coming back, like how's it going to affect them? And I thought like the main person who was really going to have to adjust him was Wiggins because Poole would go to the bench and play more from there. But I don't know. It hasn't yet really fit together that well. And so my concern is a little, but if we like keep playing and it doesn't seem like it's starting to gel and flow, then it might raise. But I think it's going to be hard to tell before Dre gets back, right? I think Dre needs to be out there so we can see how it all works together. Yeah, I think Dre will reel Clay in a little bit. Like I love Clay, and you're never going to bash Clay, but sometimes when he's been out there, he's been playing maybe not always within the flow of the offense.
Yeah, I mean that's people forget that's who Clay was.
Right.
I'm always like, I don't care what I'm getting you content. So that's always been who Clay was.
It is. It's not a departure, but they had a little bit more freedom, I think, to do that. Then the team was different. I think.
True.
I don't think it's as wise to do that now, I guess is really my point.
Yeah.
Okay. So there was some things that happened around the league, right? Harden went to Philly. That's like the biggest. So Harden went to Philly. You know who the Nets picked up. We've now seen a couple of games with Harden and Embiid. They've looked great. What do you think about the Sixers? And who do you now think is the best team in the East?
I definitely think the Sixers trade elevated them to that upper echelon. Just having some place, I make my Harden jokes, but when he's engaged, he's still pretty damn good, especially from a playmaking standpoint. I
Top 10
think,
players still, right? You
yeah,
think?
I think on the bottom end of that at least, but still, still in that conversation. Um, I think Embiid, it's just the most open the court's ever been for him. That's the dangerous part because with Simmons on the floor, there's always a chance that there's going to be a roamer. You're packing it in, and that Harden and B pick and roll is so deadly because you can't switch it because you end up with somebody small on an Embiid, which is in his post numbers are just absolutely absurd this year. He scores on everybody, um, or you have a big guy guarding Harden. That's the tough part. Um, Maybe not as deep, which is less important in the playoffs. Doc Rivers still coaching them, which is a
Right.
right, and Harden maybe not the most reliable guy in the playoffs in the past. That's always there, but I think they're right there in that upper echelon. And B is always a real good in the playoffs. The Sixers on off numbers, they've always got destroyed in the playoffs when he's not on the floor. When he's on the floor, they've always been a net positive because he's that dominant, demands that much attention. So that's definitely something to watch out for. They're still in that upper echelon. The Bucks have been sleepwalking a lot, but I'm still going to ride with them. They miss PJ Tucker and Brook Lopez a lot defensively.
Okay.
Like they've definitely taken a tail off on that end. They got a lot of rim protection from Brook. He wasn't a big shot blocker, but he protected the rim. Like he was a good deterrent against rim shots. And then PJ Tucker was just a wing stopper. And I don't know if they have one of those outside of Giannis, who was basically best used as a roamer defensively instead of an on ball guy. So I think those are the two issues that, I can see base possibly playing the Bucks in the playoff series, but I'm still going to ride with them for the moment.
Do you think the Nets can make a deep run once Katie returns? And I don't know when Ben Simmons is going to actually see the court, but do you think they can?
When you're talking about, two humongous cogs who have to A, get in shape, B, catch their own rhythm, and then C, on top of that, have to learn how to play together. And this is all in 20 games plus a playoff run. So it's unrealistic. I do think KD is special, but I don't know if that's going to just work out. These teams are going to be well-oiled machines by the playoffs, have stuff down pat. So, we'll see what happens.
And
KD,
is that like a real thing? I mean, you're talking about it, but I've heard a lot. I've gone to some Nets spaces and I've heard a lot of Nets fans, and they're just like, when you have talent, they just figure it out. So I'm not like too worried about us needing time to figure it out. And
I mean, you can say that, but historically, when has that worked? Where you try to throw a bunch of guys together who've been hurt or missing all year and it wins? Never happened. So you can say what you want, but historically, it's just never happened. You
right.
have to build continuity, you have to build chemistry, you have to build trust. You have to go through close games together to know what works and what doesn't. Like all that stuff matters. So you can say that, but this is not NBA 2K. You just don't trade for guys in the game and they're automatically know all the plays and sets, right? So
would you say the Bucks and the Sixers now would be the top two teams in the East, or do you think like the Heat are in there?
the Heat are up there. The Heat are
Okay.
up there. I think it's Bucks, Heat, Sixers are the first kind of the first wave. The Bulls got to get healthy because I think they were right there on the edge of that, but they missed Lonzo and Caruso so bad on defense. Like they're just hemorrhage points now without those two on the floor. Despite how great DeRozan's trying to keep them in there single handedly, but they just missed those guys a lot. So I got to see them and Pat Williams get healthy. But yeah, that three you mentioned, Miami, Milwaukee, and the 76ers are the cream of the crop to me right now. And also, I'll say this: keep an eye on the Celtics.
Yeah, they're ascending at the right time. So
Boston.
I'm happy because I was like really disappointed in their start. I thought like it was going to be a big year for them. So I'm glad they're not making me look like a total fool. In the West, really quickly, I think I fall into the camp with you. I see you and Nakai is kind of going at it, but like with the Suns right now, we might be losing because they're 1-3, 1-2. They 1-2 in the Chris Paul-less era.
Oh, my agenda going down the drain.
So, but I still think the Suns are going to hold on to the top spot. I just don't see them losing enough games, but how much is that Chris Paul injury going to impact them? They won one, which was I think versus OKC, and then they lost the last two.
Well, I think the thing is that like Chris Paul's not also out. It's also Cameron Payne.
Campaign, yeah.
They don't even have their backup right now. So you're playing without a point guard. So like that's the other part. Like, you don't even have the guy who's a lesser version of Chris Paul. So it's super rough right now. It's all on Booker. And his natural inclination is to score first. So it's tough for other guys to get theirs. I think that's the issue more so than anything else right now.
Okay.
But if they get Campaign back, I think they can survive without Chris Paul, but they are going to need him in the playoffs.
Absolutely.
Much to my chagrin, but
Do you think the Suns, Warriors, and Grizzlies are all on the same tier, or do you think
I think it's Suns, Warriors, and the Grizzlies are just it's a hair behind, like just a hair. But they're behind, but just a hair.
Okay, so you would consider them though the top in the West, and then like the three that you.
I think those are the three teams with a realistic chance of like, okay, we can win this conference. I think those are the three teams.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you, Jason. I appreciate it. This was great having you on.
Thank you for having me on.
No, I really maybe when people see me talking to you and I put this out, they'll be like, oh, that Nat girl isn't so bad. Because man, Lakers, Twitter, they come for me, Jason.
I'll say this, man. Twitter is as serious as you want to make it, man. Get some jokes off, enjoy hoop. And then
it's like, I don't be that serious, but like,
right. You gotta,
they send me like death threats. I'm like, y'all know I'm not that serious, right?
Yeah, see, that's the point. That's why you gotta you just gotta block and move on, baby. Block and move on if they acting like that.
Well, again, good luck to your team this week in the playoffs.
Thank you.
I can't decide whether I want the Lakers to make it, lose in the first round. No, lose in the play-in, because y'all had a lot to say about the Warriors. Not you per se, but others.
No, before the season, I had the Warriors the top 3 seed. People were laughing.
No, I know you were higher on the Warriors, but I just mean in general, like we caught a lot like, oh, you lost in the play-in to Ja. So it would be quite funny to me if they did lose in the play-in. I know this weekend, obviously, I want us to beat you guys, but there's some people like Urkel, as you know, like he really wants the Lakers to make the playoffs. Like there's some people who really want it. I don't know where I land on that, but I'm still in the camp of like, are they really gonna like fall out? Like, is this really gonna happen? Because I don't know what I'm gonna think about that.
I think they have enough. I think they have enough of a cushion to withstand the tough schedule. I don't know if Portland, the Pelicans, and the Spurs are gonna win enough to overtake them. They got like a 3-game cushion, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Well, we'll see, but all right, I'm predicting Warriors on Saturday.
All right, we'll see. We'll have a playoff game, so I won't watch the game, but I have league pass, so I'll watch the replay.
Oh, damn! So you won't even be on live, okay?
I won't. But
all right. Well, good luck with that. Definitely. I hope you guys win. Looking forward to you having like much success in the playoffs. Your team. So go, Jason. So have a great night, you guys. Check out, like I said, Temple of Hoop. As you hear, Jason's great. He's super smart. You're going to be smarter by listening to him. Follow, subscribe to his podcast.
Thank you.
Dope, really dope follow. So yeah, that's it. Make sure you follow, subscribe, rate my pod, 5 stars only. If not, just say hi, but keep it moving. Okay. Until next time, guys, take care.